Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot and a PMDG 777 beta tester. Welcome to CAIRO. It's really been a long time until we got a good scenery for it, but Thai models have released theirs and they were so kind to give me a preview copy so that I can have a look at the airport for you guys. And what would be more fitting than to fly the Egypt Air 777 from CAIRO on their prime route over to New York City. Quick 11-hour flight, but before we are going to go into all the preparation work for that flight, let's have a quick look at CAIRO Airport, because it's really been one of those that I've been waiting for quite a long time, and apparently it just wasn't that attractive for scenery developers to do because of the default Asobo CAIRO Airport. But overall, it's a really beautiful airport. It shows us quite some of the, let's call them, typical Egyptian architecture that they've built into it, but there is a very new terminal available there as well. Now, this one seems to be more like the European terminal, if I'm not mistaken. That knowledge is really just based off analyzing a couple of flight radar flights there, while the other terminal gives us a little bit of that, let's call it more ancient Egyptian feel. Overall though, there is space for heavy aircraft at all of those terminals, so we can basically choose. Now, pretty good apron textures over here as well. I do really like them, and overall I think it is quite a good quality airport. Now, this is definitely going to make for some very interesting flights, not just using the 777, but also later on short and long haul operations alike. Now, terminal interiors are available here as well, though they did use them, let's call it, with a level of sense in there. So they didn't just go all out for the entire airport, but much rather they focused on giving us more detailed interiors where it made sense. So for example, over here, an area that you would basically never see from your aircraft. It's a little bit less detailed, and then if we go over to the lounges and have a look at the other terminals to give us an idea, then you can see that over here in that huge lounge covered with glass, over here we do get some higher level of detail as well. Overall, in my opinion, a really good match, and something that you would maybe not expect immediately is that you actually do have terminal interiors in these little windows here as well. It is rather hard to actually see inside them from your aircraft, but if we just move inside for a second, you can see that actually quite a bit of detail went into the terminal over here as well, into the waiting areas at the gates, into the transit areas, and so on. In my opinion, really very well done, and I do very much like how the airport looks like. Now, let's go ahead and head out to our lovely Boeing 777. By the way, the Egypt Air livery is really one of my favorites of the entire range of airlines available for the 777 at the moment. I just can't help myself but like it, especially the blue tones over here, and the same goes for the vertical stabilizer. Really, really nice. Also, we are flying the updated Boeing 777 over here for the first time on a full flight on the channel, and that includes a couple of sound enhancements as well, so that is definitely going to be interesting to watch. Overall, a lot of promising updates to our simulation experience with today's flight, so I really can't wait to see all of those in action. But as with any long-haul flight, let's head into the cockpit, and the very first thing we gotta do is a little bit of flight preparation. So let's just sit down in the business class over here, and we are going to analyze the flight plan before we are going to set ourselves up for the flight. So let's just take any lovely seat in here. By the way, good looking livery as well. I do really like it. It gives the airplane this Egyptian feeling to it. I just like it, really have to say. Okay, so over here it's nice and quiet at the moment. The APU is not turned on, even though it is 30 degrees outside. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning over here. Typical Egyptian summer weather. But we do have an external air conditioning unit connected. So let's go ahead now and have a look into our flight plan. Well, we're going to start with SimBrief right over here. So, looking at a couple of basics then, before we go into the details. Our route of flight takes us north via Alexandria, out to the Mediterranean, across Crete, mainland Greece, and across the Adria, making landfall over Italy, crossing France, and then we'll enter a little bit of Shenwick in the oceanic transition area over here, and then we'll finally head into our Atlantic crossing at Adara, making a crossing over here, and equal time point is located a little bit far to the west at the moment, which, well, we'll see the reason for that in a few moments. Making landfall over Newfoundland, but the weather over there is actually not all that good today. And then via Halifax we fly on towards Long Island and eventually New York City. So, having a look into our general overview then, let's go ahead and have a look into the significant weather chart. So, there's a little bit of stuff going on the flight today. At first, clear skies, which I would basically expect in this area of the world around this time of the day. But then crossing Italy, we've got an active volcano down here, Stromboli. And reaching the area of the Alps, you can see that there's some turbulence forecast there, all the way till 410 up to the north of our flight. And down here we only got some icing conditions forecast. Well, that's good enough, we can live with that. There's also a couple of jet streams, one over here with a core at flight level 380, so that shouldn't affect us. We'll be rather low today due to our high gross weight. And then there's a second jet stream that we've got over here with a core in flight level 400, so again, shouldn't really affect us. Those CBs to the south of us hopefully shouldn't play much of a role as well. Heading out to the Atlantic Ocean then, all we got to remember over here is that in case we need to descend, we might run into a couple of problems there with moderate, occasionally even severe icing forecast over there. Making landfall, we're going to cross another jet stream, and this time we can see that even though the core is in flight level 370, it ranges all the way from level 260 to level 450, and turbulence is actually forecast from 160 until 430, so making landfall in the US, that is where we might encounter a little bit of turbulence. And from there on, it's going to be an easy flight over to New York. Now, on my last long haul, where I went into details like this, some of you have mentioned that that I didn't tell the passengers about those turbulences straight ahead. Well, as a matter of fact, those forecast charts that we're looking at over here are not all that accurate. So, when we brief the cabin crew, then we usually tell them what's on those charts, and we straight away tell them as well, like, yeah, but now that we talked about it, it is not going to happen. That's just Murphy's Law for you guys. Well, and that's basically our look at the general weather condition. Now let's go ahead and have a look into a couple more detailed ones. So we'll start with our departure airport, CAIRO. At the moment, the wind is 050 at 5, so it's down the runway. CAV-OK conditions, 30 degrees. And according to the forecast, it's going to stay like that with a little bit of haze through the morning hours. Now, from there on, let's go ahead and have a look at our arrival airport, New York. And at the general forecast, we can see that a couple of rain showers are forecast later throughout the day, with thunderstorms approaching, well, from 12 UTC onwards. And if we just have a look into our planned arrival time, then we can see that we're scheduled at 15:15. So with that in mind, looking at the weather forecast over here, from 1200 we'll get showers of rain, and then prop 30, 1200 to 1800 thunderstorms. So we're actually forecast to arrive right within that thunderstorm area. Well, something we got to take into consideration as we decide on the fuel later on. Going on then for our alternate airports, primary alternate filed from the company is Philadelphia, even though, looking at this, prop 30, we get heavy thunderstorms and rain, so that's probably not exactly where we want to go to. So, going on then, the other alternates, Boston is the most interesting one they've filed, and Boston actually got pretty good weather all around, but there's one thing we should keep in mind. If we are arriving in Boston because of bad weather further to the south, down here in the New York and Philadelphia area, you can be pretty sure anyone will be flying to Boston, so that will require additional fuel as well. Okay, so that much about the weather conditions around the arrival area. Now let's have a quick look into our ETOPS environment as well. We're starting out at Shannon, and you can see Shannon today has very good weather all around. A little bit of rain, doesn't really matter. Flying wise, it's a perfectly fine airport. But then getting to the other side, things are a little bit more interesting. You can see that dispatch has given us Goose Bay today, and none of the airports on Newfoundland. The reason why, well, we'll have a look into that in a moment over here. So let's go to the weather and NOTAM tab, and we are just going to populate that from the latest flight, but I want a couple of additional airports. So let's take Charlie Yankee Quebec X-Ray, Charlie Yankee Juliet Tango, and Charlie Yankee Yankee Tango, so that we get all of those new airports in Newfoundland as well. And then finally I'm also going to go for Halifax. So let's go ahead and grab those weathers. And we did already check this stuff out, so what's going to be interesting for us? Down here we go. So starting out in Gander, you can see that by the time we are forecast to fly over there, we actually have rather bad weather conditions over here. So we've got the very low cloud ceilings and Prop 30, even just half a mile visibility in fog and vertical visibility of 200. So that's really not exactly where we want to fly. Now, then looking at Stephenville, which is a little bit further inward. So Stephenville is generally, wish I had the chart available in this mode. We'll see it on here maybe? Nah, can't really. So Stephenville is located round about here. We've got Gander, and then Stephenville a little bit further inland, and then Halifax down here. But okay, let's return to this. Did it really just remove all my airports? Okay, that's too bad. Then we just gotta request them again. So Charlie Yankee Yankee Tango, Quebec X-Ray, and Juliet Tango. And we wanted Halifax as well. So let's go ahead and search for that weather again. And that is obviously going to work a lot better if we do that with a space in between. Okay, search. So back to our weather then in Newfoundland. So we just had a look at St. John's. Well, we didn't, but you can see over here St. John's generally pretty bad weather conditions. Vertical visibility is 200, fog, drizzle, low overcast clouds, and it's only getting better at 1200. Now, that might just about be the time where we pass overhead, but then again, it's unsure, and with the bad weather they have overnight. Also, looking at the last couple of metas we had over here, not exactly where we want to go. Gander, we just had a look at that one, and then we've got Stephenville over here as well, which, well, has a little bit better weather, but then again, looking at things like this, it is clearing up. So Stephenville could be an option, but our dispatch went the safe way and just went for Goose Bay. As a general rule of thumb, we can say that when we've got bad weather conditions down in Newfoundland, then usually Goose Bay is good. If on the other hand side it's rather bad in Goose Bay up to the north, then Newfoundland probably has some better airports. Alright, so looking at looking at Goose Bay, you can see we've got a couple of gusts over here, like 15 knots, like 30 knots, but that stuff is down the runway. So it's a runway 28 over there, if I'm not mistaken. And remember, this is given in degrees true, so if we go ahead and have a look at the charts for Goose Bay, yeah, that's still an old route over there, but if we have a look at the charts over here, we can see 20 degrees magnetic variation to the west. At the runway 26 that we have over here, and looking into the approach itself, runway 26 features an RNAV approach with a minimum, let's say that we are not LPV certified, so we've got LNAV VNAV minimums 250 feet above the ground. And the runway itself, approach course 256, but we have to add those 20 degrees to the wind forecast. So if we look into the general weather forecast over here, saying 250, 15 gust 30, or up here, say 250, 15 gust 25, then you gotta add those 20 degrees magnetic variation to the west, so the real wind is like 270, so down the runway. So that doesn't really concern us, and that's probably the reason why they gave us the flight plan the way they gave it to us. Okay, so that's our flight plan analyzed. Now we gotta make the difficult decision of opting for a fuel quantity. So generally we said Boston is good. The weather down in Philly and in New York is not that much. What do we have up here? Bradley International, well, that one is rather good as well. Would just probably be a good idea to actually have a look into what kind of runway they have, KBDL. It's not one of those airports that I have on my list for big alternate airports. Windsor Lock surely doesn't sound like you want to go there on intercontinental flight. But then again, they do have a longer runway over here, 2,900 meters. So that's something at least. Well, let's go ahead and have a look into our fuel planning so that we can make some informed decisions. So, briefing preview. And where's the alternates? Did I skip over them accidentally? Yeah, I did. Here they are. Okay, so alternates. Boston is 5,500 kilos of fuel, so that's already 1,200 extra on top of what they gave us for Philadelphia. So Boston is something we got to take into account. So that's 1,200 extra, plus what does it take to carry those? Another, yeah, 300 kilos. So make that 1,500 extra for Boston. That's already fixed in our calculations. Then we can go ahead a little bit and all other alternate airports are covered for that, and now it's the question of how long do we want to wait? How long do we want to be able to enter a holding? And I'd say at least half an hour. So that's 3,200 kilos on top, plus whatever it takes to actually transport that fuel. So weight change up 1,000 kilos, 244. So if we say we take roughly 1.5 to go to Boston, plus another 3.2 additional holding fuel due to the weather in the New York area, then we already end up at roughly 5 tons extra fuel. So let's say 5 tons extra, and then to transport those we need 5 times 300 kilos, so that's another 1,500, so overall 6,500 kilograms extra fuel. So that's quite a bit of extra. And when we do something like this, then we should probably go ahead and request a new flight plan. But let's just assume that we don't have that capability with dispatch over here. The reason it might be important is because of those altitude, those filed altitudes over here, which of course, being 6 tons heavier, we might not necessarily be able to achieve. However, today, 300 initially, we know that we can do that at the max takeoff weight, so taking 6,000 extra at the takeoff weight is still going to leave us with a lot of range. And in terms of the landing weight, let's say that we just don't use any of that, which is unrealistic. We'll at least use 1,500 to carry it. But then our landing weight would still be within the maximum landing weight. That's the two things we gotta check over here. Okay, so that's our fuel decision and flight preparation done. You can see this can take a lot of time. It just took us, well, we are now 18 minutes into the video, and we just about decided on how much fuel we want to take. So that's about the preparation that goes into a long-haul flight, and, well, that is just what we have to do. But with our decision now made, we can say that we take 106 tons. So 106 tons of fuel should be the quantity that we are going to order for today's flight. So a small cut at this point. I intended to Alt F4 my Firefox with SimBrief on it, and I Alt F4'd my flight simulator. Well, here we sit again, and we are just about ready to start our setup, taking a seat in the captain's seat of our 777. So with our fuel quantity decided, 106 tons, let's go ahead and import our flight plan into the electronic flight bag, and then we can start our preliminary pre-flight procedures. So we start up here, turning on the ADRU, as that's always the first thing, and we can also turn the voice recorder switch on already. Next up, a quick look over our aircraft's condition. So we've got full oil quantities on both sides over here, which is very good. The hydraulic quantity is good on all three systems. Oxygen pressure 1850. Let's go ahead and do the oxygen test. And we still have 1850. And the APU oil quantity, let's just turn that on for a moment without actually starting it up. At 7.7 is looking good. Okay, and then we can turn it back off again. As our passengers are about to come, I'm also going to turn on the emergency lights already so that boarding is actually completely legal. Now, let's go ahead then and review any ICAS messages that we may have had that maintenance cancelled out before we got the airplane. So we do have only expected stuff here as far as I can see that. Well, that's definitely good, yeah. Only expected stuff. Okay, excellent. Then we can go down into the FMS and check that we've got the correct airplane type, engines, that our database is current. We can use our GPS position today and then go into the route request. So we're going to go for the SimBrief route. We'll set the fuel, we'll set the payload, obviously both the other way around, and then we can go ahead and select our route. And while that's in progress, we'll go down here onto the fuel load and we'll load up the 106 tons that we've actually decided that we're going to take on today's flight. And might as well just turn the transponder off while we're at it. Okay, so route uplink is here. Let's go ahead and load that one up. And well, our engineers have obviously worked at the airplane a little bit earlier than when we arrived, so let's go ahead and turn those lights off. Don't really need those, do we? I think it makes the airplane a little bit more comfy to have a uniform light level in the flight deck. Here we go. Okay, so our route seems to be completely here. Let's go ahead and activate, execute, departure arrival, CAIRO runway 05 center with that forecast wind. Let's just go ahead and request the actual winds as well. ATIS request, Hotel Echo Charlie Alpha, and we are going to use the PMDG server on today's flight. You can give us automatic updates, yes, and send that one out so that we get the latest weather. Okay, well, we'll execute that for now, and for our arrival, initially we planned runway 22 left with a part 3, Kenneberg, I believe that is, transition, and we can execute that as well. So, new message, CAIRO information, Sierra at 0200 Zulu, 050 at 4, 10 kilometers, 30 degrees, 1006. So I made it my personal habit, whenever I get to QNH, I'm going to set it straight away so that I cannot forget about it later on. Okay, and then we can go back to our route. So, route copy, and then onto the legs page. We don't have any SIDs here in CAIRO. The way they work is that all flights depart on radar vectors. So let's go ahead and grab our charts, and then I'll show you what I mean. And let's go for the nighttime charts, certainly a little bit easier to read. So, as you can see, no SID charts. So what we can use is the radar minimum altitude chart that kind of gives us an idea. So generally, runway 05 departs like that. We've got a prohibited area over here, which we got to ensure that we don't fly through that. 2100 is our minimum vectoring altitude, and 2300 a little bit further out. So basically, if we continue on the runway heading till 2100 feet, then we can just maneuver anywhere we want. Okay, so since there are no constraints to check on the legs page, we can go ahead and ignore those, load up the wind data, execute, and do the same on the forecast wind data down here. Okay, then let's go ahead and conduct our route check. So down here's our route. We're going from CAIRO to New York, Egypt Air 985. And, well, might just copy that again, because why not? Okay, and now let's look at our route. So we're going direct Charlie Victor Oscar, Lima 617 Tanza, direct Velop, direct Olga, direct Ayosa. Then we've got direct Edugi, direct Lanley, direct Barkep, direct Batma, direct Ripdu, and then direct Aztec, Ronab, Gijus, Uniform Papa 860 Tango India Sierra, direct Limoges, direct Manap, Upper Yankee 110 Tiraf, Upper Tango 183 Bagat, direct Ampop, direct Lulox, direct Adara, then 52 North 20 West, 52 North 30 West, 51 North 40 West, 50 North 50 West, Elzia, Brad, and then via Plym onto the Part 3 arrival. Okay, so I actually selected the wrong star there. Let's go ahead and correct that earlier mistake. So it's going to be Part 3 out of Plym today. Alright, execute, and then we'll make another route copy so that we've got a corrected route in here as well. And this definitely looks a lot better. So ground distance 4,965, and on the flight plan we've got 4,978. That's close enough. That indicates that there is no gross error. Okay, so Hotel Echo Charlie Alpha going into the fix page so that we know our MSA in the area. We don't need anything in the radios, it's automatically tuned CAIRO VOR. And then we can go over to the VNAV page where we check our transition altitudes. So let's just go ahead and select one of the approach charts over here. For example, CAIRO 05 right. Over there we get a little bit of stuff like the MSA 3800, the highest in the south there, but we're departing to the north, so anything in the region 3000 is going to keep us safe. Transition altitude 4500, which we can see matches our VNAV page, and then we can continue on to the performance initialization. So we'll accept our uplink, but nonetheless we cross-check that it's correct. So you got 7.5 as our reserves, and you can see a little rounding error over there. That's why we do these checks. Okay, flight level 300 as the initial cruising level is checked, cost index 44 is checked. We've got jet A1 fueled, so the minimum temperature is -44, and the cruise CG is going to be somewhere around 30. Okay, then let's go on to the takeoff page. So we'll do acceleration at 1000 feet today, and thrust reduction at 1500. And the rest can basically stay as it is. Okay. So with that, our FMS setup is completed. Let's go ahead and stow away the universal flight tablet, and then we do the flight deck setup. So up here, everything's normal, everything is set, fueling is completed, so we can turn the seatbelt signs on. And over here, again, everything's normal. Yeah, the logo light can stay off, it's bright enough outside. And we have the packs off, that's intentional. EFIS setup, flight director's coming on. Then we go down to the ECL, reset all, thank you. And we have initialized our ACARS already. Okay then, going over to the FO's EFIS panel. Set that one up over here as well. Okay, down to the main panel. Lights are set as needed, the clock is automatic, and we can set our QNH over here as well. 1006, auto brake, RTO. And going down to the comms, well, we are not flying online, so basically we don't need to set anything down there. So, just for the sake of doing something, I'm just going to go ahead and set our Honeycomb frequency. And on the right com we'll definitely set the guard frequency, which should be standard setup for any flight. Okay, here we go. So audio control panel, listening to left and right, and the flight interphone, weather radar onto WX+T. On a flight like this, we definitely have an observer as well. So we would certainly fly this one with a 3-pilot crew. So we can set up the observer's audio control panel as well. Alright, and the FO is going to use the same data that we do on the captain's side. TCAS to above, Squawk 2000 in the absence of anything else. And that's our panel setup completed. Alright, so are you ready for the departure briefing? So threats for the departure, to be honest, I don't really see any over here. So we don't need to make any up where we don't have any. Okay, route check. We're going from Hotel Echo Charlie Alpha to Kilo Juliet Fox Kilo, Mike Sierra Romeo 985, ground distance 4,965 versus 4,978, which is good enough for me. It's going to be a left seat takeoff on runway 05 center, flaps most likely 5, maybe 15, noise abatement procedure 1, and our departure is going to be radar vectored, so most likely they'll give us something like fly heading 330 after departure, but we'll talk a little bit about that during our taxi to the runway. Emergencies, we can go straight ahead, climbing 3000, that is going to keep us safe. So above 80 knots I will only reject for fire or fire warning, engine failure, predictive wind shear warning, aircraft unable or unsafe to fly, or any ICAS message that still makes it through the automatic suppression logic. If I call stop, I will simultaneously close the thrust levers and disengage the auto thrust, apply maximum manual braking or verify operation of the RTO auto brakes, manually raise the speed brake lever and apply maximum reverse thrust until the aircraft comes to a stop. Okay, thanks. If you call stop, I will note the brakes on speed and call speed brakes up or speed brakes not up and thrust reverse normal or abnormal indications. I'll call 100 knots, 80 knots, 60 knots and the runway distance remaining, verify your actions and call any omissions. I will call auto brake disarm and select flaps 30 when the brake has been set and advise ATC of the reject. Thank you. We then identify the failure and carry out any drills as appropriate. If we decide to evacuate, we do the evacuation checklist. Time permitting, we'll pull the CBRCB, you grab the load sheet and then we get out. So if the call before V1 is keep going, there will be no actions below 400 feet except to cancel any warnings and raise the landing gear with a positive rate. At 400 feet, verify heading select and carry out the memory items. At the MFRA, buck up, retract flaps and schedule. Flaps up no light, select level change, max continuous thrust, engage the automatics, non-normal checklist, normal checklist, and then we make a decision whether we can come back. CAIRO certainly is our best option. However, we are above the maximum landing weight, so we'll have to consider if we have time available for fuel dumping, which, well, looking at this 106 tons is easily going to take at least 1 hour, probably an hour and a half to dump everything to get down to the maximum landing weight. So if we just have a quick look into our flight plan, zero fuel weight 220, max landing weight 251.3, so basically we're going to go down to 30 tons of fuel. That means we gotta dump approximately 76 tons. As far as I'm aware, the plane dumps at about 1,000 kilos per minute, so we're looking at about 75 minutes, an hour and 15 to dump the fuel, just so that we have that ballpark figure in our head already. Okay, taxi is going to be fairly easy. Let's go ahead and bring those charts out. So here we are, standing at Terminal 3, push back into the bay at number 2, and then taxi out, fairly easy, straight ahead via the taxi line Bay 2 onto Sierra, and then Sierra Tango to runway 05 center. The departure is radar vectored, initial climb clearance probably something around 5,000, and that's it. Do you have any questions on the briefing? No? Excellent. Well then, let's go ahead and do the pre-flight checklist, please. Okay, so oxygen, chest at 100%. Flight instruments, heading 250, altimeter 1006, reading 380 set left, set right, pre-flight checklist complete. Okay, so by now boarding should hopefully be completed, so let's go ahead and start up that APU, and before they close the doors we are going to close the cockpit door. So, ground operation, door management, close all. Ground service vehicles, release all. I'll just have to check that again. Okay. Well, then I will quickly do the passenger announcement and then we can start with our performance. Salam alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, from a flight deck. This is your captain speaking. My name is Emmanuel, and in the name of Egypt Air, welcome aboard our flight 985 to New York City. With me on the flight deck are a lot of first officers who are really eager to see our sceneries and airplane in action, and who are going to conduct the flight for you today. Flight time approximately 11 hours, and we expect routing via Greece, Italy, France, and then out to the Atlantic Ocean, over Newfoundland, and then southbound via Nova Scotia into the USA and along Long Island towards New York's Kennedy Airport. We expect a mostly smooth flight today, however, since clear air turbulence can occur unforeseen at any time, we do ask you to keep your seatbelt fastened whenever you are in your seat. Thank you very much for being our guests today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight with us. And I am not capable of doing anything in Egyptian, so I'll keep it at that. Okay then, let's go ahead and do our performance, please. So, zero fuel weight is 220.0 and the forecast is 220.1. That's okay. That gives us a takeoff weight of 326 tons versus 318.9. Yeah, that's about the extra fuel that we took, so those values do make sense. Okay then, performance tool, CAIRO, runway 05 center, 4,000 meters long. We are going to import our numbers from the airplane and we're going to import the weather as well. Hit calculate, so takeoff rating at 43 degrees. So full takeoff, 43 degrees, 99.1 versus 98.7, that's close enough. Okay, that is a flaps 5 takeoff they calculated, and we have 27 CG. Trim 5.25 versus 5.2, close enough. Okay, takeoff speeds 175, 184, 187. And here we go. Okay, engine out acceleration height 1500, and we should enter that as well. So EO acceleration 1500, normal acceleration, they say 1500 over here, well, doesn't matter. Okay. So that's this. We can put the tablet away, back to the EFB app, and we go back to our moving map. That's what we need. Alright. So then let's go ahead and request our pushback, please. GSX, prepare for pushback and departure. So 187, we'll use VNAV. We'll just go ahead and set our runway heading at first. So I actually gotta search for what that is, since I can't use my normal shortcut on the Lex page there. So runway 05 center is a runway heading of 044. You go 044, and let's say we'll climb initially to 5000. So APU is running. Ground from cockpit. Go ahead. So you can disconnect all the ground equipment. The parking brake is set, and you're clear to lift up the aircraft. Let us know as soon as you're ready. So, release air conditioning unit, release ground power unit. The jetway should probably have disconnected already. Yes, it did. Excellent, and the chocks can go as well. So that's just about perfect. Then, APU is running, packs coming on. Okay, ground, are we clear to pressurize the hydraulics? Yes, sir, clear to pressurize. Roger. And fuel in center shows. So 5.25 units of trim. Some people have been wondering about that, how you actually trim it. So use the thumb switch on the control column here. That is what you'd normally use to trim the aircraft. Yeah, just some random squawk there. Okay. Transponder coming on, we'll push with the nose going to the left, please, but stand by for the start of pushback. Okay, before start checklist. Flight deck door, closed and locked, MCP 187.044 5000, takeoff speeds 175, 184 and 187, CDU pre-flight completed, trim 5.25 units, 0 and 0, taxi and takeoff briefing completed, holding at beacon. Ground flight deck. Go ahead. So, we are ready for push. Let's see, traffic behind is clear. Okay, you're clear to push, facing south, parking brake is released. Roger, start on the push, and stand by for engines. Stand by. So, before start checklist is complete. Just wondering, did I do... Yeah, I wanted to put the transponder to XPNDR, not to TA. Okay, TCAS off, that's expected. And engine shut on, TCAS off are the only two messages we have. Excellent. Okay, so with that, we are good to go whenever we are clear of the immediate gate area. So basically now. Okay, ground, we'll start in sequence right, then left, starting right engine. So, fully automatic start. The only thing we need to check for is that we have oil pressure by the time that we have EGT rise. As you can see, we got oil pressure even now already, so no problem at all. Okay, that's very good. So, the local time in Cairo is UTC +3, so it's 6:35 right now, and as far as I remember, that was exactly our scheduled off block. Yeah, 3:35. Awesome, so we're running exactly on time. Very good. I do have to say, these are some pretty neat textures we have on the apron over here as well. Good job, time models. I like that look. Okay, we've got a good start on the right engine, start on the left engine. Clear left. Pushback complete, set park and brake. Park and brake set. Roger. So that's the revised startup sounds for you guys. And I can definitely see why they got the blast fences over there. Otherwise that poor glass down there would probably get shattered straight away from that engine thrust. Okay, 2 good engine starts. Clear disconnect. Show me the sign in the front and have a wonderful day. Bye bye. Okay, so they are all clear. Flight control check, please. Full up. And there's the thumbs up signal. Thank you. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Rudder. Full left. Full right, neutral. Okay, before taxi checklist. Anti-ice, auto, recall, checked, flight controls, checked, ground equipment, clear. Before taxi checklist complete. Okay, let's go for it. So, clear left side, clear right side, can clear that T-cars over there, and taxi straight ahead, via the Bay 2. On to Sierra Tango. Okay, brake released. Taxi. So, let's see where the other aircraft is going in the front there, but I think it shouldn't be much of an issue. So, while we're at it, good texturing work that we can see on the apron over here. I do like those terminal textures as well, that... yeah, just that standard CAIRO look over there. I just like it. It's very nice architecture. Okay, that Egypt Air is going, well, somewhere, but not where we are going. That's good. Clear right side, clear left side. So the takeoff is going to be right into the sun. That'll be lovely. Our eyes are going to be happy. Man, beautiful reflections of the sun over here. Really beautiful. So, finally CAIRO, my friends. Finally CAIRO. Well, now comes the big question. That guy's going here. Then where is he gonna go next? I have a feeling we should better stop here and probably wait for him. Because he can only go like that in the U-turn, right? If we look at this, he's coming in on Tango. Yeah, he can only make the U-turn. Well, that's interesting. I wonder if that's realistic taxi route, or if in the real world they would probably have taxied him via here and then southbound on Tango or Sierra over here, instead of going, well, like this, so the AI seems to be acting up a little. Maybe that's something they can improve for the next update for the airport. Yeah, because now he's coming ahead of us. Tiny difference in the size between the 737 and the 777. Just look at it right now. That's... well... a tiny difference. A tiny difference between the two aircraft. A very tiny difference. Okay then, well, we're clear of him, so let's go ahead and continue taxi. And most importantly, continue taxi before the next guy comes over there. So that's something that I hope they will be able to fix with an update for the airport. Okay, so it's going to be a radar vector departure over here, which is something that we don't do all that often. So let's just quickly talk about our standard operating procedure here. Normally at airports like this, where you don't have a published SID, ATC is going to say something like, when airborne fly heading 330, runway 05 center cleared for takeoff. And then what you do is you climb basically straight ahead to 400 feet, and thereafter you'll engage heading select and go for the heading they advise. Now this is a little bit problematic in terms of standard operating procedures, of course, because either we pre-select the heading that we need, so the heading after departure, or we gotta remember that heading by heart and then set it in the air. Now, if you pre-select it, obviously you'll have less work once you're airborne, but in case you encounter an engine failure then obviously you need to return it to the runway heading. Now the big question is, will you remember what the runway heading is? Well, luckily you've got the runway line down here on the nav display. That kinda helps you with it, but you get the general idea here that you don't really have a perfect choice there. You can only choose between two options and none of them is ideal. Now in terms of headings themselves, a little spoiler there, I checked Flight Radar 24, there is a very nice Egypt Air 777 takeoff video from Just Planes. I can very much recommend that, where you can also see those headings that they get on takeoff, like 330 at first and then 290 when airborne to intercept the filed departure route. And that is what we are going to try today. We'll have to see if 290 is going to do. We might have to turn a little bit further, like 270 or so. We'll see about that. Okay, so we probably missed the cabin ready because we were in the outside view in the meantime, so let's assume that it is ready right now. And a quick look into the approach area. We're clear on the approach, so let's line up runway 05 center. Well, weather is not a factor, so I am going to use the terrain display for today's departure. Before takeoff checklist. Before takeoff checklist complete. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. So transponder and strobes, we'll wait with our actual takeoff until the company 787 has crossed up there. And once he has crossed the runway, then we can depart. So in the real world, the runway in Cairo is rather bumpy, so let's see if they may have simulated that. And I'll tell you honestly, with those, you're not supposed to have the sun visor in place during takeoff, but with the sun right over there, I am going to put it on nonetheless. Okay. So, ready to go? Take off. First set. New engine sounds for you guys.
80 knots.
Checked. Oh yeah, that runway is bumpy. Man, nice. I wonder if that's sufficient for Volanta to record a landing rate.
V1. Rotate. Positive rate of climb.
You're up. Okay, select heading, select 330. Okay, acceleration. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1. I think I know why they used 330 after departure. Look at that, it's not really any buildings over there. If we went further left, we'd go over the buildings again, and further right as well. Okay, flaps up. Speed checked. Flaps up. So 5 knots above 250, that is completely fine. Look at that small maneuver margin we just had there. Okay, and the flaps are up. So, after takeoff checklist. After takeoff checklist complete. Checklist complete. Okay, left heading 290 to intercept the flight planned route. So that is what they used to do on the Just Planes video. We'll see. Yeah, we actually do intercept that route with that. So that's excellent. Okay, let's continue our climb a bit. Here comes heading 290. Yeah, we'll cancel that contract for the weather in a few moments. Set standard. Standard cross-check passing flight level 53 now. Checked. Autopilot. Okay, so when ATC tells you to intercept the flight planned route like this, then obviously we need to check that the inbound waypoint is correct. So in our case, it has already transitioned from CAIRO VOR up towards Menku, which is the next waypoint along our route. If it did not do that, then we could apply a small trick to convince it to intercept the route nonetheless. And that trick would go as follows. So you go to the Lax page and you can see that our inbound course towards Menku is 312 degrees up there. So if we just take Menku on top and now take intercept course 312 like that, and if we now execute this, you can see we've basically drawn an extended center line like we would do with a normal runway inbound to Menku along our flight planned route. So it's important that the inbound course over there on the Lax page matches, and if it does, then well, now we do have LNAV available, so now we can engage LNAV, or rather we can arm it, and as soon as we're close enough to the route, I believe it's 2.5 nautical miles, then the airplane is going to intercept the filed route. And that's as easy as it gets to do this kind of stuff. So, leaving CAIRO behind, there's the airport. I think the pyramids are somewhere over there. Or over there, maybe. Well, who knows, maybe on another flight we can find them. And you can clearly see where the Nile is. Look at that, the Nile Delta is completely green, and as soon as you're far enough from the river, it just turns desert everywhere. Okay, passing 100. So, LNAV has captured within 2.5 miles, I guess, and once we're close enough to the route, it is going to intercept that route for us. Okay, I don't anticipate any turbulence over here. Let's go ahead and release the cabin crew for duties. We'll most certainly get the window shades in place so that we aren't constantly blinded. We can take hours off. I don't think we'll need that for the remainder of the flight. And here you go. The airplane is nicely intercepting the planned route. Okay, we're on climb thrust, so we can get rid of the timer over here. Still rather hot outside, so the climb performance is probably not going to be too excellent, but don't worry about that. Okay, so then let's go ahead and have a look. Our scheduled arrival time is 15:15 and our estimate is 14:38. Excellent, then we don't need to worry about that. Okay, the wind data is still in, the descent winds are in as well. So what do we get? Recommended flight level 260. Okay, that's rather low. Now 300 is filed and 300 is the optimum. I'm a little bit reluctant to believe that 260 right here. I suggest we just climb up a little bit higher and see what's gonna happen. Even though I can definitely see where the 260 comes from. If you look at the wind, a little bit crosswind. If that turns headwind with higher altitude, then certainly flying down low might make more sense. But let's see what our forecast has in here. Oh, no vertical revision page in here. My bad, that was an Airbus move. So, wind data, here we go. So 270 is 210 at 40. Well, it turns a tiny bit. I tell you honestly, I'm more happy with our flight planned level of 300 over here than if we stayed low. So let's go up to flight level 300. Set, 300 checked. I don't think a lower level would make much sense. Of course, we have to take into account that we are 6 tons heavier than what our flight plan has originally calculated, but nonetheless, I am rather positive that it's not worth going to flight level 260 at the moment. It's probably worth a lot more to gain an initial cruising level that fits our needs, and then do step climbs later on as needed, rather than to start playing games now. Okay, so for the FMS setup we got Tanza and Olgat that we can already insert. So, Tanza, put that on the fix page, and then we have Olgat over here. Diversion airports at the moment, CAIRO makes the most sense. And then just looking ahead on our route, well, Heraklion is one. Then we have Athens, and later on we've got, I believe it's Brindisi. So let's go for Algier, and then El Gaf at first. And we'll leave one empty so that the airplane can determine one alternate automatically. Okay, arrival fuel 13.6 versus reserve 7.5, so that gives us 6 tons extra, which is pretty much exactly what we uplifted as well. Okay, excellent. So with that, we're pretty much good to go over here. Let's see, airplane configuration is looking good, nothing to worry about. I just really love the reflection of that light on the MCP over here and on the buttons. Looking really good, isn't it? Sometimes you really just gotta sit back and enjoy what Microsoft Flight Simulator has to offer, right? Okay then, what I'm going to do is I will already turn on a little bit of time acceleration right here, so that we can at least get up to cruise and do a check at the first waypoint. By the way, talk about getting up to cruise, maybe there is one thing we could do beforehand, and that is a little direct. So we can fly direct to Tanza over here. Apparently the CAIRO controllers are rather well known for giving you excellent shortcuts. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and select a beam point so that we have some waypoints for the fuel check later on. Here we go. Might just about keep that Sub-03 up there, and we can get rid of the other ones. That way we have one waypoint for a fuel check now, and that's it. Okay. So, another thing that we can do, but we'll do that only once we're up at cruising level. So let's turn a bit of acceleration on to get us all the way up. And once we're up, we can run our cruise checks, and then probably just relax and enjoy the marvelous views outside. In general, really nice view on the Nile Delta over here. A little bit of morning fog over there towards Alexandria to the left. I gotta say, even after 4 years of using Microsoft Flight Simulator, those graphics are still really impressive, aren't they? You can nicely see where the Nile Delta ends over here. A couple of rivers going over here, over here, over here. Or rather, a couple of canals, I should say. And then over here, desert. That's really... when you fly across Egypt, that's what it looks like. That is really what it looks like. Our rate of climb isn't exactly great. That's of course due to the temperatures. Still plus 14 TAT. Let's see what the static is. Yeah, minus 17 only at flight level 260. That's about 8,000 meters, minus 18 degrees. That's very, very warm. Just went past the 100 tons of fuel. I always like to see that when it's still 3-digit fuel. Obviously our friends in the United States are a little bit more used to that, but well, it's just awesome. Over 100 tons of fuel. Just imagine that quantity of liquid in front of you. Always amazing how much of quantity that actually is. Just think about the airplane uses 100 kilos of fuel every minute. Now, at the higher weight we have right now, even more than that. So 100 kilos fuel per minute. Now imagine a 6-pack of water. That's like, what, 6 liters? Now imagine how much it burns every single minute. Really impressive figures. Okay, top of climb. Flight level 300, we took 21 minutes to get here. Let's go ahead and have a little look into our tablet. So 99 tons is what we have at the top of climb. Should have taken 19 minutes, it took us 21. And 92.6 plus 6 we took extra, so we're looking at 98.6. We had 99, that's very good. And then we're passing beam Selbach, should be 24 minutes. We have 21 minutes, so we saved a little bit of time. And we should have 91.8, 7.6 used. So comparing that, used 7.1, so we saved 500. And, well, 91.8 plus 6 tons, so we should have 97.8. And we do have 98.9, so we saved a little bit of fuel as well. Which does make sense if you think about the extra time that we have saved. Now, why did we save a bit of time? Just to think about it for a moment. Obviously because our first waypoint here was CAIRO VOR, which is how the flight plans work from CAIRO in the real world. But because we used CAIRO VOR, that would have assumed that we made a 180-degree turn, went back to the airport, and only then assumed flight along our route. So that is why we saved a bit of time, and that is why we saved a bit of fuel. Okay, with that we're basically set up. Now I am going to use the... well, we are flying across a little bit of hilly terrain, so I'm just going to keep the terrain display on my side. The FO can use weather, even though we should be perfectly capable of seeing anything that might come across our route today. So with that we're all set up. Now from here on, I'd say sit back, relax and enjoy the flight with us. Whenever something interesting happens, we're obviously going to have a look at it. And other than that, I'd say enjoy the flight with us today. After a quick 10 hours and 38 flight, we are already approaching Plym, which is where we enter the arrival for New York. So let's go ahead and carry out our standard checks. We'll start requesting our latest weather over here through the Asus request for KJFK. Right, going to use the PMDG server since we're flying this one offline, so let's wait for the weather before we continue our setup. It should hopefully come any moment now. Well, in the meantime, let's go ahead and start preparing what we expect. So, we're still expecting the ILS approach for runway 22 left at the moment, so let's just go ahead and start preparing that. We can still change around. Here it comes. So, new message. KJFK information hotel. Surface wind 210 at 6, visibility over 10. Clouds broken 7000, broken level 250. So that's pretty good weather conditions. 3009. And here we go. And we might just as well set that on the standby real quick. Here we go. 3009 is set and checked. Okay, so excellent weather conditions for our arrival into JFK. 22 left is going to be our runway. And then we can take an airport chart as well. And now the only information we would really need would be our arrival gate. But maybe we can just cheat a little bit here and have a look at Flight Radar to see what the latest real-world flight landed on. So here it is. And that is, well, today's is actually in the air right now, so let's have a look at yesterday's. Took 11 hours 13, pretty much flew the entire arrival till about here. And they parked somewhere over here on the apron. Okay. So that's just about where you leave taxiway. I believe it's Alpha on the inner one. Well, let's go ahead and close flight radar again. So, not this one. This one. So that's this one. Okay. So parking down here, Terminal 1. So probably gonna taxi via Alpha and into November down here to the parking gates. Something like that. Okay. Well then, we've overflown Plym already, so let's take a quick moment here to cross-check that our entire arrival is actually correct. So, Plym, where is it? Here it is. So, Plym towards Providence, towards Trade, and Trade is expect flight level 240, so let's go ahead and enter that. It's only an expect, it's not an exact level, but if we can expect that, why not just put it into our FMS as well? Then we got 250 knots and 12,000 over at Calverton, like this, and then we can proceed to Rober, expect 9,000. And we can enter that as well. And the way I see this, landing 2-2 left right, we basically can follow this entire arrival. That seems to be what the real flight has done as well. And then from Cabot join the final approach. So looks pretty much like they flew exactly the standard procedure to me, which makes it very easy. Okay, so we can execute this stuff. Oh, all the winds are gone. Okay, let's go ahead and request a little update there as well. In the meantime, let's go ahead and do some landing performance calculation here. So landing en route, Kennedy International, runway 22 left. It's dry at the moment. Is that runway length correct? Looks a little bit short to me. So we don't need the CAIRO charts anymore. This is it. Runway length, yeah, 2,560 meters. So that's correct. Okay, we will import the aircraft details and the weather, calculate. Okay, so 2,092 meters is what we need using auto brakes 3. Let's just about go ahead and see where that ends us up on Juliet. Okay, yeah, that seems pretty good. So we vacate Juliet, cross 2 right, and then straight ahead via Alpha and November to the gate. That seems logical if you ask me. That indeed pretty much looks like what I would expect. Okay, so landing at 1500, 10.7 on the fuel. Well then, we need KJFK in here, and we can do a 25-mile ring around that. Reset MCP altitude, yeah, in a few moments. Okay, and then we can delete any of the others, we don't need those anymore. Okay, landing fuel 10.7, currently 12.9, so let's say we burn 2,000, that gives us about 231 tons of landing weight. Flaps 30 landing. We calculated auto brake 3 would give us a good distance to vacate the runway, so let's go ahead and use that. Okay. And that's pretty much our setup completed down here. We can get rid of that weather, please. So all that remains now is the minimum, which is 212, as we can see. So 212, here it is. Excellent. Okay, well, I'm quickly going to do the PA, then we can do the checklist next. I just want to have the PA out of the way before we actually start descending. Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, this is your captain speaking. We will start our descent towards New York's Kennedy Airport in a few moments. Weather over at Kennedy at the moment, few clouds at the sky, temperature about 23 degrees. We would like to thank you very much for choosing Egypt Air for today's flight. Hope you have enjoyed it as much as we did. Our expected landing time now is 1800 Egyptian time, or that would convert onto 11 AM New York time. Thank you very much for choosing Egypt Air today. We hope you enjoyed your flight with us and look forward to welcome you all again on board of a future scheduled service. Okay. So that is our passengers dealt with. Well, so descent checklist please. Okay, recall, checked, notes, checked, auto brake, 3, landing data, 03143, Minsk Barrow left 212, and approach briefing. Well, let's go ahead and actually do the approach briefing, completely forgot about that. So, threats for the arrival, well, it is New York, that means quickly talking our traffic controllers, little separation, and we've got a runway crossing on our way in. On top of that, the apron procedures over there, where you never really know if they want you to contact the ramp first, or exactly how they want their things done. So we'll just be a little careful there and make sure that we don't mess anything up. Okay, so just gotta be a little bit careful with the traffic below us over here. So if we level off in 310 initially, that should hopefully work with that TCAS target down there. Okay, well, so that's it for the threats. Now, what am I gonna do about them? Well, listen carefully to the radios. Luckily, since we're flying offline, not too much of an issue today. And for the taxi procedure, well, we'll carefully enter the ramp, make sure that there is nobody taxiing out at the time when we are taxiing in, and that should hopefully be it. Okay, any other threats? Not really, huh? Okay, what's the traffic doing below us? Yeah, he's clear, we can continue down. So let's go down to level 240 next. Okay, so then let's go ahead and have a look into the arrival itself. Part 3 arrival with a plum transition. And we are basically flying exactly along Long Island over here, all the way until we end up on our final approach. So Capit is over here, and the approach itself, well, Capit is roughly somewhere over here if I'm not mistaken, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. We've got vertical restrictions everywhere, so any possible ATC shortcut is covered already, and that's mostly it. So going to do a flap 30 landing with idle reverse only. Turnaround is long enough, so we don't have to worry about that. So idle reverse it is. Coming off at Juliet, straight ahead, crossing 30 right, crossing 22 right, which is a bit of a hotspot there. So making sure that we are not going to cross it when there's any traffic out there. And that should mostly be it then. Well, in terms of alternates, let's actually go ahead and request a little bit of weather there. I mean, New York is a lot better right now than what I would have expected. But let's go ahead. KPHL was our primary, Philadelphia. Okay, send that out. And then we can also collect Boston. Okay, Boston sent. And then let's just see what we're going to get here. So, gotta wait a moment until the weather comes in, but I believe we actually made it in before the front. I have a feeling all the bad weather is going to arrive after us. Did they have any trend in the ATIS? No, they didn't. Okay, well that means that the next 2 hours should be good over here. And I have a feeling if it's good over here, then, well, we can more or less see Philadelphia somewhere over there. There are a couple of higher clouds, it seems, but looking over here along the coastline, everything is good already. Alright, then let's see what the weather just brought us. So, new messages. We'll start at Philadelphia, which is still very good at this time of the day, 25 degrees already. And then, if we have a look at Boston, that's very good as well. Okay, excellent. So basically we didn't need any of that extra fuel that we took. Well, we did need a little bit for that weather avoidance over the Atlantic there. That was a couple of extra track miles. Likewise over France, and then we had a rerouting from ATC as well. Slightly longer over at France. But that's all insignificant. Okay then, descending along the star, 12,000 is going to be next. Well, so, weather is good everywhere, then we don't have any threats to complain about. Do you have anything? No? You? No? Excellent. Okay, well done. Seatbelts coming on, passing 250. Okay, complete the descent checklist. Approach briefing completed. Descent checklist complete. So, terrain is not really a factor over here, neither is the weather. So, I'm just going to stay on the weather radar here. Well, terrain over to you. Not that it would make any difference here. That should be it. Okay, any questions? No, excellent. Well then, down along the arrival, what always impresses me is how accurate, or rather how precisely air traffic control often uses the stars in the US. Like, depending where you are, especially in Florida, I noticed a lot of directs, but for example, on the United States East Coast, or the Northeast Coast, let's put it like that, I don't recall actually getting many directs over there. The only thing that can happen when you've got bad weather is that they're going to reroute you via anything that gets you in between the weather. In general, I have to see, US ATC is very, very good when it comes to weather avoidance. In Europe, you basically have to request your radar vectors yourselves, vectoring you in between all the weather. In the US, they look at the weather radar from their perspective, which, however, of course, is ground-based, so it doesn't give you accurate altitude information, but nonetheless, it gives you some pretty good info. And they normally will give you reroutes via waypoints, VORs, or whatever. I've actually had it a lot of times already that, especially in the time where you haven't entered your star yet, that they are just going to clear you to a completely different star. So looking into the different options, for example, for the Pouch 3 over here, we came in via Plym today, and if, let's say, over here there would have been a big weather, I would not have surprised at all if they had just sent us direct to Tops over here, and thereafter direct Kennebunk, and then onto the star from down here, or maybe down here to Sandy Point, and then make us enter the star over here. That would be typical US weather avoidance. And especially in Florida in summer, where you've got very, very large weather cells. I've had reroutings of several hundred miles already. On one instance, flying into Tampa, we came in more or less along the coastline, and they basically rerouted us all the way down to Miami and then back up north to Tampa. That was 45 minutes extra time. But it works. It's just, my personal feeling is they don't care too much about fuel. They just give you those huge reroutings, and who knows, there might have been more to it than we were able to see from the aircraft. Like, I would not have been surprised at all if they had enormous holdings that they had to clear first, and therefore just gave us a much longer arrival, so that we would simply fly extra track miles and not enter a holding and then wait in the holding. My opinion, the holding would be the more efficient way, because in case it becomes clearer, you can just turn in straight away, but normally they are doing a pretty good job with that stuff in the US. I really have to say that. Normally they do a pretty good job. Okay, set QNH. QNH 3009 cross-check, passing 18,400 now. Checked. So in some operators you would do the approach checklist straight away, in others you would do it later at 10,000. I tell you what, we're just going to do it straight away. Approach checklist, altimeters, QNH 3009. Approach checklist complete. And here we go. So, inbound Calverton now. Calverton is at 12,000. A little bit low compared to our standard profile, but in an area that is as dense with traffic as the New York area, you don't even have to think about fuel economy and maintaining an optimal profile. On one occasion, flying into Philadelphia, I've been in level 100 eBeam New York. And we basically flew in level 100 along the coast all the way down to Philly. It was an amazing sight, but unfortunately after a short while they vectored us away from the coastline and brought us out to the open ocean again, and then it was just flying in the turbulence, flying in the weather, and not really gaining anything. But nonetheless, I sometimes wonder if these things are really necessary. Like, do you really have to be in level 100 miles before your destination, even in an airspace as congested as the New York area? But then again, probably they had to relieve some of the upper area air traffic controllers where you would normally fly through, and probably those sectors just ran full of aircraft. A single air traffic controller can only control so many aircraft, and when the sector is full, even though you might still have space in the sector, if it's full in terms of aircraft, for example, in Germany, one controller, depending of course on several factors, but normally a controller shouldn't handle more than 12 aircraft at a time. And well, if there's 12 in the airspace, then, and there is less in the airspace below, and the airspace below still has capacity, then yeah, they're just gonna descend you down. Nonetheless, it's sometimes interesting that these kind of things happen a lot in the US, but a lot less in Europe. So if any of you has an idea as to what is happening there exactly, why these things happen in the US but not elsewhere, then do put it in the comments below. I would absolutely be interested in that. Of course, I do have to say that, you know, after 1 year of flying long haul, I don't know how many flights to the US I've done, like 30 at best, probably less, 20 maybe. So it's not all that many flights. Thinking back to short haul, I would do 20 flights in 5 days. So obviously it gives you a basic idea, but it doesn't give you like the big picture that you'd have when you're actually based there, or when you would, you know, have 20 years of experience flying there. But nonetheless, it starts building a mental picture, and normally I make a little game out of it for myself, like can I forecast what they're going to do next? And I start to get kinda good at it, so I guess I somewhat can forecast it. Alright, speed restriction 250 over Calverton, the airplane's starting to reduce. Might have to help it a bit since we're on a geometric path descent, and on geopath the airplane is not capable of pitching up to reduce airspeed, so might have to help it there a bit. Yeah, I tell you what, we have to help it. So, speed brake coming out, and then our next restriction after Calverton is going to be 9,000 over at Rober. Set, 9,000 checked. Okay, approaching the target speed. No, we don't need any thrust. Thank you. And here we go. VFR traffic is not too much of a concern for me right now. It's far too cloudy. At least for any VFR to be maneuvering somewhere here in between the clouds. For that reason, we'll do the lights at 10,000. Long Island. And a beautiful livery, isn't it? I said it before on this video, but I really like the Egypt Air livery. The color tones are just perfect, if you ask me. And it's nice that they actually put a logo in the front, where any other airline would just place the logo of the airline. So it's nice to see that they put this pharaoh on the front here, and then put the Egypt Air text behind it. It's somewhat different to what you would see on many other operators, so I certainly do appreciate to see that. Okay, that's our reduction at 10,000, but once again we're on a geometric descent profile, so from Calvert and 12,000 to Roba 9,000, the plane just uses a constant angle between the two, and that means that there is no space for a speed reduction there, so we'll have to use the speed brake in order to reduce our speed on that sector. Approaching 10,000 there. Cabin crew, prepare for landing. Okay, the prepare for landing tells the cabin crew that they have 10 minutes left. So, speed coming back towards 240. At least roughly. If it's, you know, 250, I don't really mind about it either. Okay, and after Roba we can probably descend down to 3000 then to capture the ILS. Now, I think, seeing that there is basically no traffic around, I think I'm going to do a little bit of manual flight at the moment. Even though it is kind of strange, like, FS traffic is working, isn't it? Let's go to regenerate traffic here for a moment. Also make sure that our destination is entered correctly. But I think I did all that on the ground. And nonetheless, we're approaching New York and there is hardly any traffic around. That's strange. That's certainly strange. Okay then, I'll tell you what, we're approaching Roba. Let's go down to 6,000. Here we go. Set. 6,000 checked. And then let's just do a little bit of manual flight here, because why not? If there is no traffic around, we definitely have to use it. I'm going to use manual thrust on this one as well, just to be sure to stay in training over here. Generally speaking, Boeing recommends to use auto thrust. However, since it's only a recommendation, it's basically up to the airlines to decide on what exactly they want to do. Okay, level change. So it's basically up to the airlines to decide on exactly what they want to do. And if an airline decides that they leave it up to the pilots, then obviously the pilots should rather invest a little bit of time into ensuring that they keep up their training so that they're able to do both. Now, this is exactly what my company does, by the way. They leave it up to us if we want to use auto thrust or not. And personally, I kinda prefer to do manual thrust whenever possible. However, in some situations, say for example when it is like really bad weather conditions, where you might just need to focus on other stuff, that's when I would normally keep the auto thrust engaged. Of course, likewise, if it's been a very long flight or if you've done a night flight, then I might just prefer to keep it off. Up to the pilot. But what is important, if you got a company that follows a philosophy like that, then you gotta ensure that if you're allowed to do both, auto thrust on and auto thrust off, then you definitely gotta practice doing both every now and then. And if you've got a situation like right now where there's just no traffic around, which does surprise me, I would certainly have expected more traffic here in New York, but well, if there is nobody here, then gotta make the best out of the situation and use the practice you can get. Right, let's go down to 3000. And then we might also just do radar vector here, say heading 310. Heading select. And here we are. Okay, extend the center line, please. So we'll do roughly then. And that's gonna be 224. Here we go. Okay, make sure to maintain that track precisely. And maybe just do a little bit lesser rate of descent here. Say 500 feet a minute. Okay, if you can't see the glide slope on the primary flight display yet, a very good trick you can use is to use the standby instrument, and the PFD is going to hide the glide slope from view if your track is not within 90 degrees of the runway track, but the standby is always going to show it. The standby doesn't have a logic like that. Makes it pretty easy. Flight simulator hanging right now, and here we go again. Okay, let's go ahead and start slowing it down. We don't want to approach the downwind too quickly. Can make it a nice exercise here as well. Maintain the target vertical speed while reducing the indicated airspeed. That's a good little trim exercise. If you've seen my recent video on how the fly-by-wire of the 777 works, then this is definitely a good exercise to get yourself comfy with it. Okay, if ATC would have commanded 220, then 223 is gonna work as well, so that's what we are going to do. A little bit of thrust then, and provided that we'll get the plane right back onto the target speed, it should stay relatively stable. Okay, I think this is pretty much fine as it is right now. So, no glide slope information yet. That means we're probably not in range of a glide, which is rather unexpected, seeing that we're only 17 miles from the runway. But then again, we know we've got our FAF over here, so shouldn't be too much of a problem. Right, let's go ahead and reduce our speed further. Flaps 1. Speed going down. Might just as well call for level change then. And turn the auto thrust off again. Still no glide slope information, that's a little bit unexpected. Okay, here it comes. There is our glide. Okay, so turn left heading 250, cleared ILS approach, 22 left. So we do have sensible indications there. Approach mode armed. (16 miles out roughly). I'll just keep it in flaps 1 for now. In the absence of any speed restriction, in the absence of any traffic, we don't need to worry about this good stuff. Okay, localizer alive. I'm flying a little bit outside the flight director right now, because I want to kind of make it a smooth, continuous turn onto the final. Ooh, bit of turbulence here. Localizer capture. Okay, level in 3000. Flaps 5. Speed checked. Down to the flaps 5 maneuvering speed. Idle power. And here we go, established nicely. A little bit gusty here. Looks like some of the bad weather that was forecast is setting on right now. You can see how I'm working on the control column down there to maintain that flight path. Okay, established on the ILS. 3000 feet missed approach altitude set. So the passengers are seated, the lights are on. That's excellent. Come on, speed, don't drop too much.
2500.
Checked. Okay, gear down, flaps 20. Flaps 25. And flaps 30. Okay, and I tell you what, in these kind of weather conditions I want to give myself a little bit extra here. So let's give it 5 knots on top there, 153 for the approach. With that turbulence, I think that is a good decision. Okay, landing checklist. Landing checklist complete. Okay, maintain the glide slope, and now it's literally just getting that aircraft down. Be sure that you are in trim, that's key for a stable flight path in the 777. Most comments I've heard from people who said they had problems flying the 777 proved not to be in trim in the end. So be sure that you are precise with your trimming. Use the blip trim when needed. Checked. Stable at the gate. Small hangar of our sim there. Okay, give me a target speed of 148, please. It's not that bad. We don't need to add any more speed than we really need to. Again, use the blip trim every now and then to ensure that you are definitely within trim.
400. 300. Approaching minimums.
Checked.
200. minimums.
Continue.
100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
It's not a very long runway, so we don't have too much distance to waste for the flare. Okay, speed brake up, thrust reverse normal. Idle reverse. Okay, manual brakes. We wanted to take the second exit there. And here we are. So, welcome to New York, everyone. Our start at the timer basically when we went to idle reverse, so that we can do a bit of single engine taxi there. And then we can get off to the right, make sure that we vacate that runway completely before we do anything else. Not a very tight turn, but let's reduce speed a little bit more there, like 15 knots or so. And then when we're on the straight sector, that is when we can start doing our procedures. So, gotta pay a little bit of attention there. As there is obviously a crossing runway. APU can remain off for now. Well, we'll keep the strobe light as we're about to cross the other runway. Oh, see, there's an aircraft taking off already. That's what I meant, gotta be a little bit careful there. Okay, and the flaps are coming up. So, quick look out to the right. I think there actually is an aircraft there. Yeah, there is. Okay, gotta hold short 2 to right. In that case, all lights coming off. Okay, and clear the cross. So, flare 737. Okay, the next one's lining up already, so let's go ahead and expedite this. Crossing 2 to right. So, up to 30 knots, straight ahead, and then all the way straight for the beginning. Let's go ahead and open the taxi chart down here. A little bit of lag in the simulator always when you're trying to access these. Here we go, that's what we're looking for. So I do have to say, overall, those moving maps are certainly quite helpful. Okay, but for now, straight ahead. Okay, we've got 3 minutes, and we are going in a straight line. Right engine shutdown. So that's engine shutdown right and TCAS off. We can cancel them both. So 11 hours 15 flight time. That's quite good. The real one took 11 hours and 13, as you could see on flight radar there. So that was definitely quite a quick one. Okay, I think we'll go to the right after that terminal building over there. And we'll have to see. That was Terminal 1. And parking stands, not 100% sure right now. So, GSX, parking, Terminal 1. And let's make it stand number 6, no, number 5. Follow me, no thanks. Handling by Swissport. That gives us a good excuse for the next delay already. Okay, speed 10 knots. Now let's see the ramp. The Air New Zealand is stationary. And anyone else? Well, there is no one else. That's good. That means we are not going to be in conflict with any of the aircraft down there. Oh, and we can certainly turn the strobe lights off, and by now we can turn the APU on as well. So, off to the right, stand number 5 is over there. So, we just gotta find the correct position to turn into the stand right now. Okay, the Air New Zealand on the left is behind the line, that's good. Okay, and I think that's number 5 right in front, okay. So, lights going off, number 5 is over there. Gotta make sure that we don't lose too much speed right now. If you stop in a turn like this, you've got a problem. But I think this is looking okay. So, Boeing 777 is on the guidance system. Here we go. Stop. Okay, brake set, APU running. Cabin crew, all doors in park. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying Egypt Air. Welcome to New York City. Shutdown checklist, park and brake, set. Shutdown checklist complete. Okay, so engines are coming down, beacon can go off. Then let's go ahead and get ourselves some ground equipment, please. Ground operations, chocks in place, jetway requests. Why is the ground power on air start inhibit? No thanks. Okay, well, looks like ground power is broken over here. That would absolutely not be a surprise in New York. So, start to left, and service vehicles, we need the bulk cargo, aft cargo, and forward cargo. Well, and the fuel truck for the next sector can come as well already. So, 7 minutes taxi-in time, that was pretty good, and 11 hours and 15 flight time. Okay, so... let's have a look. We've got... everything as expected. Over here as well, quantities are looking good. Up here and down here. Alright. Excellent, so with that, we've got a successful flight. And welcome to New York, everyone. So, I do hope that you have enjoyed this flight. Leave your feedback in the comments below. I'm very much looking forward to it. And maybe you can also answer the questions I've had en route. In the meantime, I do hope that you enjoyed this flight with the updated Boeing 777, and I do hope that you like the CAIRO scenery. I sure do, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to fly there again pretty soon. In the meantime, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed your flight, and I'm very much looking forward to see you all again on the next one. Finally, if you want to learn to fly the 777 like I do, check out my Ultimate 777 Guide ebook. More on that in the video description below. Finally, if you really love what I'm doing on the channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I see you all again on the next one.